Hello folks, welcome to Andersen Air Force Base. Unfortunately, our Guam deployment has come to an early end. 10 days ago, 11 crews from 4 squadrons flew off the ship for what we hoped would be 2 weeks of fun on the beach. The ship has been redeployed, however, and so this morning we will all be returning to the boat. Since we've been away from the boat for more than 7 days, all of our night quals have expired. Not surprising, the CAG has ordered CASE III for this morning's recovery, even though that recovery will be after sunup and the weather is not expected to require it. To regain night qualification, each pilot requires a day trap the same day as their night requalification. That process will begin tomorrow. The airplane for the next few days will have as many night events as day events to ensure that we all regain our night landing requalification. This is important. The ship is heading to the South China Sea and operations in that troubled area. Marshal, Fist 407 checking in.
407, Marshal, go ahead with your lineup.
Marshal, Fist 407 is a single F-18 marking your 010 radial at 60 miles. Angels 27, stay 10.3.
Fist 407, Marshal, Mother is CASE III, CV1 approach, final bearing 091, temperature 79, ceiling 2700, visibility 5, altimeter 29.72. 407, Marshal on the 330 radial at 21 miles, Angel 6, expected approach time 35, button 2.
407 will marshal on the 330 radial at 21 miles, Angel 6, expected approach time 35, button 2. This diagram represents a Marshal pattern. It's called the 7-minute pattern. It has two 2-minute legs and two 90-second turns. However, it's not the only Marshal pattern. There are several. The default Marshal pattern is the 6-minute pattern, which has two 90-second legs and two 90-second turns. It's the default pattern for two reasons. First, it's mentioned in CV NATOPS. Quote, "The holding pattern is a left-hand 6-minute racetrack pattern. The inbound leg shall pass over the holding fix," unquote. Second, 6 plus 00 is the default value in the F-18C's CD, or countdown timer. As I mentioned, other patterns exist, and in reality, there is very little difference in how the 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7-minute patterns are flown, and on any given night, several of these patterns may be utilized to arrive at the holding fix on time. Often, the shorter patterns, i.e. the 1 and the 2-minute patterns, are used to make last-minute corrections. The 3-minute pattern is the shortest pattern that can be flown using the autopilot with the heading bug and the auto throttle. The key takeaways for flying the Marshal pattern are the following. 1. Know how much time is remaining to your push time. Use and set the CD timer. 2. Know how much time it will take to fly from where you are or from key points in the pattern to your Marshal fix via the pattern. 3. Use autopilot and the heading bug. At 300 knots, this will give you a 90-second, 180-degree turn. 4. Use ATC or auto throttle prior to the final pattern. Maintain max endurance. 5. Maintain max endurance airspeed until the final turn, then actively maintain 300 knots ground speed by turning the ATC on and off as necessary to adjust for wind during turns. ATC holds true airspeed, not ground speed. 6. If you are not flying the perfect pattern, which is always, make your gross or large adjustments on the outbound leg. Then make fine adjustments on the final inbound leg to the fix. Now that you have your Marshal instructions, continue your shipboard landing checklist. Some items may already be done while others will be done later, which means you'll need to review this checklist again on final. Verify hook is down, enter the Marshal radial by dialing in its inbound course, check the field carrier switch to carrier, turn the anti-skid switch off, set the baro switch to radar, set the CD timer, then verify the time entered is correct a minute or two later. Be at your Marshal altitude 10 nautical miles prior to entering the pattern, then detach wingman as you pass through their assigned Marshal altitude. You should be watching the tail of the tack hand needle. Assuming the tack hand is tuned to the ship, the tail is the white dash mark currently located on the left DDI just outside the compass ring at 350 degrees. Using the 60-to-1 rule, we know that at 45 nautical miles, 1.5 radials equals a mile, and so 10 miles equals 15 radials. So I should be at 6,000 feet no later than 345 degrees, which is 15 radials from the Marshal radial. Once level at your Marshal altitude, determine and set max endurance airspeed. You'll maintain that until your final turn. Check your bingo setting, set max trap plus the needed fuel from push time until just before landing. Then verify your clock time during any and all 99 time hacks. For your turn to intercept the final bearing, use the 1% rule, i.e. at 250 knots, your no-wind turn radius will be 2.5 miles. And utilizing the 60-to-1 rule, we know that there are 1.5 radials per mile at 45 miles, so begin your turn to final at about 4.5 to 5 radials early, or at about 335 degrees. Set the CD timer by determining the difference between your push time and the next whole minute. Place that value in the CD timer and hit enter as the seconds digit reaches 12 o'clock. In today's Marshal pattern, I have a lot of time to play with, more than 12 minutes. That's more time than I need or want. So my plan is to work myself inside the near half of the 7-minute pattern, that's inside 26 miles or point echo, on final, and then perform a series of 180-degree turns to eat up time and to set up a situation where I have slightly more than 3.5 minutes at Point Charlie heading outbound in the 7-minute pattern. Marshal 407 established 9.7.
407, Marshal, acknowledged.
As you'll see, at Point Charlie in my 7-minute pattern, I will have 4 plus 2 or 4 minutes and 22 seconds to go until my push time of 3.5. So we do the math. It takes 3 plus 30, or 3 minutes and 30 seconds from Point Charlie at 300 knots ground speed to reach the Marshal fix, Point Foxtrot, via the pattern. So I will need to extend beyond Charlie for half of that extra time, or half of 52 seconds. So I will extend beyond Charlie by 26 seconds. I actually count in my head the 26 seconds just like I count the 17 seconds in the break. When slewing the heading bug, be careful not to slew beyond 180 degrees, or you'll get a nasty turn reversal, which is sure to screw with your timing. You may notice that during my final turn, I clicked off the autopilot and heading bug, leaving the auto throttle or ATC engaged. I did this in order to pull the aircraft around in a slightly tighter turn to properly intercept the final bearing. It turns out that this action did not affect my timing by much. Once on final, my first checkpoint is at 2 plus 00 minutes to go. At that time, I should be at 31 miles or at Point Delta. It turns out that my distance was 31.2, so slightly long. Since I can't control how fast the clock moves, my only recourse is to speed up slightly to shorten the gap at the next checkpoint. At the midpoint between Delta and Echo, I was still slightly long. However, my ground speed is fast at 315 knots, so I'm correcting in the right direction. At Point Echo, my distance long is slightly smaller and still correcting, so all is well. Inside a minute to go, I start dumping fuel to my preset MaxTrap Plus fuel load. At the midpoint between Echo and Foxtrot, my distance is correct for the time, and I've reduced the correction in ground speed to +2 knots. At my Marshal point, I was again very slightly long, but within 2 to 4 seconds of on time. If I was off by more than 10 seconds either way, I would report that to Marshal in my commencing report. Marshal 407 commenced on time, platform, state 8.1.
Altitude. Altitude.
Roger 407, final bearing 091, switch button 2.
This is a busy time, especially from the first slot. I hope you noticed that upon commencement I began my 4,000 foot per minute rate of descent, and then at 20 miles I turned toward the final bearing by 30 degrees, or roughly to a heading of 180 degrees. At platform, I slowed my rate of descent to 2,000 feet per minute. I then combined 2 calls in one, my commencement report and my platform report. In all that, I forgot to make the switch to button 2, approach. Another error on my part. I allowed my heading to drift left about 10 degrees before correcting back as I intercepted the 12-mile arc. Again, using the 1% rule and reminded by the tack and needle dropping, I turned to final. At 12 miles, there are 5 radials per mile, so my turn should start as the tack and tail crosses 285 degrees. A reminder here, I set my tack and course and hence its CDI needle to the BRC. However, at this point, I'm turning to intercept the final bearing, which is marked by the ICLS course needle. So the tack and CDI will be to my left, just beyond the second dot, when I'm established on final. You may have noticed that the home fuel tone is sounding every few seconds. Pretty annoying. I will silence it once I'm out of my current turn. It's just a matter of changing the home destination waypoint on the fuel page. At 8 miles, dirty up with flaps to full, Verify hook is down and fuel approaching max trap.
.407, Marshal, switch to button 2.
407 switching.
.407 3/4 of a mile, call the ball.
407 Hornet Ball, 4.8.
Roger, ball 407, welcome to button 2.
Shit.